Our Municipal District of St. Stephen Council on July 26, 2023 at 6 p.m. Thank you all for coming, Council. Before we begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered today on ancestral unceded territory of the Passamaquoddy people. Next up, I need a mover and seconder to approve the agenda with the addition of 1 and 2. Or I'll just read it out. Of 1H, report of the Chief Administrative Officer, CAO informational report, and N under 2, correspondence letter and petition to enforce the dangerous and unsightly premises policy at 64 Mark Street. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? So. Councillor Harding and Councillor Greenlaw. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, Earl? Aye. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Any conflicts of interest this evening? Seeing none. All right. Next up, I need a mover and seconder for the adoption of the minutes for the regular council meeting held on June 28th, 2023, be approved and presented. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Heislip and Councillor Eastman. Thank you. Any question? Yep. Question? Yep.
Just on the cemetery thing, I think we probably should put some more details in there as to why it was tabled. I had a person contact me over the last couple of days, just to, and wanted that elaborated a little bit more. And I think it's a good idea because what we had thought was we were going to do a survey and make sure that we understood all the cemeteries that are now in the municipal district boundaries, and possibly form a cemetery committee and so on and so forth. So there was more actions out of that rather than just tabling it. So I was wondering if we get some details in there on that.
Okay. Well, on that question, how would we go about putting something in the past agenda that we're approving right now?
No, it's fine, because it's not the agenda, it's the minutes.
Okay.
And it's just more of an explanatory note on it. That's,
okay.
Do that.
All right. Well, first of all, does council okay with that?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. All right. So the motion is still back on the table to approve the agenda for the meeting held on June 28th. So I had a mover and seconder, and I had a question. Any more questions? All right. All those in favor with that extra note for the details on the cemeteries? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, mover and seconder to move into the report of the Chief Administrative Officer.
So moved.
Councillor Wright, Councillor Rodas. Any questions on that? Or no, we'll move in and we'll vote it in, sorry. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. My apologies to Council for having it added as the report added as a late item. But as my first note, my report indicates I was away on scheduled leave. I do want to express my gratitude to the senior management team, who are making noise, for holding down the fort while I was away. Although they'll also attest that while I was away, I was also doing a fair bit of work, which, I guess, the notes are in my report as far as progress being made on the collective bargaining, which we hope to bring to council in the near future, and some of the other items that we were working on. I can expand a bit on the recruitment one at the bottom. This afternoon, we were able to interview 2 candidates. We'll be doing 2 more candidates interviewed tomorrow, which would wrap up our first round of interviews for that position. So hopefully, by potentially next week, we'll have a candidate selected and get that off and running, and then we'll switch our attention over to the admin assistant that council also asked us to work on. So yeah, short report with a vacation in there, but happy to take any questions from council.
Great, thank you, Jeff. And okay, Councilor Otis.
Just a note for the executive assistant position, since this is a brand new position to our municipal district. Are we going to be putting together, like, as they learn, somewhat of an orientation package that can also be, for purposes in the future, replicated if we are ever to hire somebody else for longevity purposes?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Through your worship, what the plan is we're actually working from an executive assistant toolkit that was designed by the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, and in fact, the interview questions were even came from that toolkit. And one of the things that it's designed to do is make sure that we have the most effective use of the EA position to the CAO. So there's an entire step-by-step process of things for the EA and the CAO to sit down and work through. So once the person's in place, we're going to go through that toolkit step by step and get anything that we do note. It'll be recorded and there for any future use.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, let's move on to, what's that? Oh, no, we did not. Thank you, Joyce, our counselor, right? So no more questions. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next up we have public comment period. Before we start, I'd like to bring attention to the bylaw in place is for public question and comment period. One, the public questions and comment period is limited to 10 minutes in duration unless extended or affirmative vote with an affirmative vote by the majority of council members present. Each member of the public may have 2 minutes during the public question and comment period to address council regarding items on the agenda for the meeting unless prohibited elsewhere in accordance to this bylaw or in other enactments or extended by council. 3, a member of the public wishing to address council must do so in accordance to section 3132 and begin their presentation by stating their own name and resident of the municipality. A council or a committee member may ask or answer questions of a member of the public who is addressing council or committee, but must not enter into debate. The chair may refer members of public to the appropriate department or committee for a response. All right, so that bylaw has been in place for quite a while. I just wanted to at least put it out there because it's kind of getting array and the communication's coming, but it's not coming back to you guys. So I want to make sure that we do receive it and we do be able to get that to you properly. So, stating that, any public comment this evening? It's about the podium, sir.
I had spoke here a couple of months ago. My name is Richard Heislip. I am a resident of St. Stephen now. We are making some headway with getting people out to check for needles, to help clean up parks, schoolyards, and stuff like that. But we need some help from you folks. We need grippers, no-stick gloves, amoxil kits. We have about 40 people that are trying to help with this now, and we need some help from you folks because there is an issue, and we're trying to help you folks with it. And we have talked to the MLA and the MP's office about the safety of children and the public, people. We need to get on top of this because it's going to get out of hand. It's just, it's going to be too late when a child steps on a needle and dies from fentanyl. It's too late then. And we need to be on top of this because we don't want to lose our future children. I've had hundreds of parents come up to me and talk to me about this issue, and they're very upset that it's not quite reaching where it should be with council. And they've asked me to speak to you folks about getting it to where it should be, where the parks, the schoolyards, daycare areas are safe for children. We need to have that done. I don't know how to stress. How many of you here have done CPR on a dead child? Worst feeling in the world because they're not going to come back. And this I am trying to prevent to the parents of the community. You don't need to lose your future. We need to be helping the future. We need to get it so it's safer. Need a responsible users program because you guys are getting a needle exchange. For 16 years in Moncton, I chased after the needles that were from the needle exchange. I picked up 1.3 million needles off the streets. You're getting a needle exchange. You're going to need to be on top of this, because if not, it's going to get out of hand, and then you're going to have the issues that you have in the bigger cities. So
I would ask that you bring your proposal to the town, and they'll present that to the department head in that category, and then if there's action or whatever, then they'll bring it to wherever it has to come to. They may be able to do it without council, but anyway. So just bring that, officially to the town.
10 sharps containers out on the streets right now. We got 40 people that are walking and looking. Next week, we're going to have my number up on the community channel. If you see a needle, or out with your dog or your child, call. We'll fetch. It's to make the community safe, because you don't need the loss of a child.
So I'd ask you to get that number if it's there, and anyway, through the department head, so we can make sure people know that number as well.
People that are local business owners that know the procedures in the channels, where I don't. I'm a grunt. I'm out on the streets. It's, search and destroy before it destroys a child. So we need to get it in place.
Okay. Thank you. No. Councilor Rodas, please.
I'm going to suggest to you and I can chat afterwards, because harm reduction services out of Avenue B in St. John, they specialize in this as well, and they know the appropriate ways to pick up needles, and I know this is part of what they do. So they would have,
Sorry.
they would have a great contact as well in terms of like best gear, best practice, and we could connect. You could connect with Avenue B Harm Reduction for that gear. I know they supply it. That's my point.
Okay, so you can connect after here and share that information. We got to stick to town business. Okay? Thank you. But town business, you can take up with the department head and present your proposal, and we can act. Yeah.
And make the best of it as I can. And if I got to be looked down upon for not being proper, well, you know what? Save a life, that's proper.
No, thank you for bringing awareness. Thank you. Any more comments?
David Whittingham, I'm a resident of St. Stephen, and it's regarding the Community Safety Committee. A month ago, the CAO presented some options for community safety, and then 2 weeks ago at the Community of the Whole, some additional discussion was presented on creating a community safety committee, and I'm just wondering what the status of that project is and when it will be the timeline for being presented to council.
You're going to hear that shortly, this evening. Thanks. And you want to? Okay, actually, go ahead, and Jeff, you can comment on it.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for the knowledge of everybody, the Community Safety Committee terms of reference were approved by the mayor earlier this week. And just within the last 15 or so minutes, our team that works on some of our public advertising have sent me a draft of the poster that will be released tomorrow, seeking expressions of interest to sit on that. So all that will hit our social media feeds probably at some point tomorrow. And once we have names in for expressions of interest, we'll present those to council to populate the committee.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, David. Any more comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, everyone. Let's see. Next up, I need a mover and seconder to move into the departmental informational reports be acknowledged and received. Councillor Harding.
Second.
Deputy Mayor Wheaton. All right, let's start off with the Deputy CAO report. Protective Services, please. Sean?
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll start out with infrastructure. As my reports typically do, I list activities related to the different divisions of Public Works. Fair bit of stuff related to Parks and Recs, where we assisted with that, getting ready for summer, flowers, splash pads, swimming pools, all of that seasonal stuff. We assisted Kev and his crew with a lot of that. Also, we got the docks in. We're now in asphalt mode. We spread our first loads of asphalt today, so that was a little bit slower getting going than we would have liked, mainly because of the weather and the ability to get asphalt, but we're now into that mode. We're still doing a little bit of painting around town, crosswalks, and some of those things are getting freshened up as time and weather permits. The Union Street project and the School Street projects are both well underway. I would say that's probably the highlights of what I have for Public Works. I take any questions at this point for Public Works.
Thank you. Sean, I was just wondering if there's any progress being made, because I've been asked about a tearing down or whatever the structure that burnt up on Pleasant Street.
I can't really get into the specifics on that, but I will say that that particular file is being handled.
Councilor Wright?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment, actually. It's not so much a question. I do try to walk the trail from down behind Spree, the full length up to the Axe Factory and back at least a few times a week. And every time I walk it, I am struck by how well our parks are maintained. And every time I'm by, I see families and little kids playing in the splash pad. And there's usually some people in their fold-up camp chairs sitting looking at the waterfront just across our parking lot here. It's just nice to see that our flowers are being kept up, our yards are being kept up, and that citizens have some things to enjoy, and it's just beautifully maintained. I'm struck by it every time. And there's an old saying, and probably not politically correct, but there was an old saying that used to be on walls that housework is what a person does it, nobody notices until they haven't done it, kind of thing. And I think that's about our town. Sometimes we can take it for granted, so I just wanted to publicly say I think it's great, and I think you and your staff deserve accolades for what I see personally as I'm walking. So thank you for all you do.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilor Wright. Councilor Greenlaw?
Just wondering how we are with the insurance claim on the lagoon, and if we've got that close or...
Sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
We have made progress. It is very slow, and it's not going to be resolved anytime soon. Frank is dealing with them on the financial side of things, and we did make some progress there, I believe. There's a long string of emails that came in this afternoon that I didn't get to completely read, but I think we're making progress there. On my end, we're working to try and get, a tender out, but of course, we have to have drawings to tender, and that's kind of where we are now. That's between the insurance company and consultants to get that done, and it's taking some time, but that's where it is. Once they get proper drawings, then we can go to tender. I don't anticipate seeing a new building down there anytime soon. Hopefully in 2024, but fingers crossed.
You want some more? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Greenlaw.
Yeah, so is is the delay that we're seeing here now and just the slow process going to end up costing the municipal district more money by having to rent equipment or use more diesel or whatever over the next year or so until it's back to where it needs to be?
Sorry. That's certainly possible. We were incurring expenses related to equipment that we have now been able to get out of there. Can I guarantee that we won't have to bring it back? No. I'm very hopeful that we won't have to bring it back. If we do, it will be soon. We're into that time of year where temperature and all that could throw us some curves. So far, so good. You're welcome.
Okay. All right, so next up, you already did infrastructure, didn't you?
That was it.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission. Oh,
I didn't do protective services.
okay. So you skipped it. All right. Go.
Sorry for that, Your Worship. I guess I wasn't looking at the agenda, just my pile of paper. Protective services. We had 17 municipal district alarms and 4 non-municipal district alarms for a total of 21. Typical month. I say that quite a bit, but it really was. We didn't have any large forest fires or anything like that, so a good month from that standpoint. It's summer, so training kind of winds down, but we do have some of our firefighters online doing Narcan training, and there's still some Firefighter 1 training going on. Last month, I announced with pleasure a retirement party for a former firefighter, and this month I have to send my regards to the family that former firefighter Neil Morrow passed away. So that occupied a fair bit of our time in the last few weeks. I did attend an after-incident review with the Department of Natural Resources and other fire departments 2 weeks ago. I wasn't here for the committee of the whole meeting for that reason. That was a pretty good meeting. There was some good information that come out of that for future events for both us and DNR. Working on the emergency plan, I actually got the chance to do a little bit today on that, so that's coming along. Don't have a whole lot else I would like to talk about. We're a little bit busier this time of year with building inspections and whatnot. For obvious reasons, it's building season. And we did attend the Canada Day ceremonies. We had Tower 1 up with the flag flying down at the corner. Very proud and very happy to be able to do that. And I think it was quite well received by the public. Lots of people were around checking out the truck and whatnot. So we had a good day at Canada Day. I'll take any questions on protective services.
I'm going to take the floor just for a second and ask a question. When you say alarms that aren't municipal district, what are they, like, is that another area that we cover? Is that what that means?
Yes. Yes, Your Worship. That could be mutual aid to, say, Calais, St. Andrews. Also, it could be a call outside of the municipal district, but in the area that we are contracted by for ELG. For instance, Highway 1 outside of town.
Yeah, I was kind of guessing that, but I didn't want to assume. Thanks. Councilor Wright?
Just one question. I know your month has been busy, especially with the unexpected passing, so I understand that. But last month's council meeting, there was going to be a facilitation of a neighborhood watch program, and I just didn't see anything on this agenda about that. Is that something that's still going to be worked on in this coming bit to be a facilitator for that?
Yes, I've actually reached out to the RCMP about that. Just trying to coordinate with Jeff and Lisa Williams how best to bring that forward. We will come up with a plan with that. Just haven't been able to do that yet. Okay.
Councilor Cornish?
Sean, just a question we talked about earlier this year. I'm still getting some phone calls about the distance from the fire hall for insurance reasons. I'm sure Councilor Wright probably knows more about this than I do, but questions being asked that Mayfield area and the roads that's basically next to town now are basically being, I understand, assessed on their insurance because they're being served from Stillborn, Western Charlotte. And I just wanted to find out, is there any progress being made? Because I know you told me the maps will have to be redrawn and all that sort of thing. So just curious, and I'm still getting phone calls, so I have no answer for them yet. So I'll turn that over to you.
Sean or Jeff, want to take that?
Yes, there is, I guess we can say progress has been made. Slow. I spoke with NB 911 the other day after multiple requests to do so, and there's a little bit of back and forth going on, and the reality is the Municipal District of St. Stephen is once again out ahead of the curve in terms of some of the things related to local governance reform and amalgamation. They're a little bit behind in that they weren't really ready and not really prepared to make a lot of changes, but they have sent me documents that outline the procedure to do so. Again, it's going to take some time, but I at least now have some kind of direction on how to move forward. I was getting bounced from one provincial department to the other, and they're playing each other off each other, but I think now I've got a better handle on how to go about that. But certainly that's on the radar, and I was hopeful we might be able to have some of that in place for January 1, 2024, but again, I can't make any promises there. It's not looking good at this point.
Okay. All good at council? All right, so let's move on to Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission MD Planning Report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on July 20th, the PRAC met to review the proposed subdivision bylaw, and they had a comment there which you would have received in your report. I think it was a late item to the agenda, but it was just about making sure when you do these approvals for subdivision, that the land for public purposes that you're asking for from the developer is consistent with the municipal plan. So we had in some areas in the first draft there 10%, but the municipal plan sets it at 8%. So that's a note there for council. You can do that amendment. It's a minor thing at your third reading if you wish. Planners are also working on the background research related to the comprehensive municipal plan, so there's ongoing work with that. We also had the three planners at the RSC attend the Canadian Institute of Planners in Halifax, so that's why I wasn't in attendance last month, but that was very, very productive. We learned some really great stuff, and hopefully we can bring some of that back here. In terms of development, total development approvals that have come through our office: 52 building permits and 20 development permits. The total value of those permits is $3.6 million. That's construction value. That's different than what you'd see in the permit figures would have actually been issued, because that's before the building inspector has a look at it and before they can be issued under the National Building Code. But that's what's coming down the pipe essentially. 14 zoning confirmation letters, 5 zoning variances. I think there's a little typo there, but 4 sign permits, 11 subdivision applications approved to date, and 24 new dwellings in total have been permitted. So that concludes my report. Maybe I should also just add that we've been doing a couple things in conjunction with Future St. Stephen and the CAO to help with a couple potential development files that are coming down, to do some pre-application development meetings to make sure we got a couple issues sorted, and so those were actually very productive. So thanks to Jeff and Ian for orchestrating some of that. So that was very helpful, I think, for the developers. Thank you.
It'll tend to have a smoother ending too when you're all working together. Jeff?
Thank you, Your Worship. I also wanted to extend the thanks to the municipality to Alex and his team, who today sent over the draft of our Housing Accelerator Fund grant application. I had a chance to review that just before council. The work was quite expertly put together, and we'll be looking at doing the formal submission this week. That, I believe, I remember off the top of my head, I believe it was a total request of about $5 million to help our community deal with housing shortages and make development-ready properties. And I will freely admit that all the heavy lifting was done by Alex's team, and it's just another example of the good partnership we have with our friends at the RSC Planning Department.
Thank you. Any questions of council? Councilor Greenlaw.
On the Housing Accelerator Fund, is that something we're going to see? I know there was some basic information in the last council meeting or the committee of the whole. Is this something we're going to see before it's submitted? Or it doesn't look like we've got time to actually review it.
Jeff.
Timing is of the essence, that's true. But by the same token, I have absolutely no problem sending an email either tomorrow morning or tonight to share with you the documents that I got from Mr. Gopin over at the RSC.
Thank you very much. And just the last thing, the 24 dwelling units, were they single dwelling units? Were there any duplexes or multi-unit?
It's a combined figure, so I didn't do a breakdown. But yeah, they would equal things like related to someone adding say a granny suite or backyard accessory dwelling unit, including small apartment buildings and single family dwellings. So it's a mix, just a total number. Yeah.
Good question, Councilor Greenlaw. Sometimes you expect everyone to know it when you know it. It's good to hear it said. Any other questions or comments of council? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Alex. All right. Next up is the community service report. The floor is yours, Kev.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I just want to acknowledge Chief Morton and the help that we have had from the works crew, as you've probably seen with the not just the splash pad, the planters going out. We've had some great work with the crew with the dog park, getting that going as well. We'll continue to ask for their support as we prepare for the Ballier tournament at the end of August for the Rotary Field Diamond. That needs a little bit of TLC right now, so there's it shows it's a team effort, and I try and let the guys know as often as possible that the work is appreciated. Into the reports, as you'll see from Jeremy's report, it's quite extensive as usual. The highlight, and anyone would have noticed if they've been in the GCC, is the noise which the pool deck work is creating, and it's quite loud but necessary, and it's looking like a building site right now, but it's coming along. We've got good reports, good work from the project management team that's providing that information, and if council chooses, I can provide photos just like I did with the flowers this month. I'm going to try and keep you updated on how that's going. So yeah, it's a positive move that things are going and going well. So our other projects, our Plaza project out between the library and Five Kings is almost complete. There is a few issues, deficiencies that we're working through the project manager on and with the contractor as we move kind of towards the festivals coming up. We're hoping that we'll be able to help gain access to the plaza again. The wet July really didn't help, get that. It was hopefully should have been done by Canada Day. Obviously it wasn't. But as you can see, there's a little bit more colour in there now, a little bit of greenery, and we'll try and add a little bit more as we go in the future years. Next project is the dog park, as council saw from the discussions we had through email just regarding naming. We'll keep that kind of under wraps just until we get everything finalised, but the fence is in place. We've still got a little bit of groundwork just to prep, just to help us for maintenance in the years to come, so it's not too uneven, but it will be it will benefit us in the long run. And then, of course, the turning the corner, which now I can happily say is complete. We got the last plaque in place last week or so, and I think it makes a nice change just to see that up there. So besides that, everything else is kind of included in my report. If there is any questions, I do have to apologise to council for the addition in Part J, which was the draft of the parks bylaw. That's completely my fault. It still needs a few tweaks. I thought I'd be able to get that to you, but I haven't, so my apologies for that. But if there are any questions, please let me know.
Yeah, I'm going to steal the floor again here for a second. I wish the gentleman was still here because this would fall in your category, because something just came to me as we're discussing things this evening, and it's about needles. My first question is, are we, the parks crew and anyone else staff related, seeing needles? And how many is there? Because I want a couple of facts. And I'll say why I'm asking the question is because I think I heard that maybe he's picking them up. So if that's happening, we're not seeing them. So I would like, when the gentleman comes back, I would like to find out a tally, a count, or if he's got an account, if that's the case, and then we can compare it to if we have any, because we can't make decisions without facts. And I'm not denying they're not needles, but we're not seeing them, is what I've been hearing when I asked, right?
That's correct, and that's what I'm hearing. My apologies. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from we've got mowing crew, we've got a parks crew, we've also got a horticultural crew that work in the flower beds. They're on, they're mowing the high traffic areas that like playing the playing fields, but the parks crew as well. So we've got 3 different crews with eyes out there, and I'm not hearing a number I can't give you. I wouldn't say it's on one hand or 2 hands right now, but if there is somebody picking them up, then maybe that's why we're not seeing them.
So just kind of keep that in mind, I guess, that's what I'd ask anyway. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to mention all the work that's been done with your group. You did mention turning the corner, and I know that that's been in the works for a long time, but it really, really does look nice, and I've received a lot of positive comments. And then also all the benches that have been going up at these, on Thursday night when they have the music at the bandstand in Milltown, there's 2 new benches there. And I must say that the music has been extremely well attended. They've been lucky. They've had some good weather, too. So, and I'd like to inform everyone, too, that next month in August, the music will be held at the Ganong Park. And people really, really like that. They really enjoy that. And then I also would like for people to know about the events coming up. International Festival celebrating 50 years this year, and a lot of work has been done, like both from Calais and over here. And the brochures you can find right here at the counter. I did bring one, then I left it in the car. And also Chocolate Fest, and Chocolate Fest also has an event that we're taking place now, and that's in the brochure. And I think, we often talk about negative things going on, but I think these are very positive, and people are working very hard at it. So I'd like to promote those. And 2 things, this is not really from the town, but there is a tea at the Charlotte County Museum it's the day after New Brunswick Day. August 8th, right? And there's also one taking place at La Nacera. They were planned the same day. But anyway, La Nacera is raising money to buy a generator for the building. It was really scary when we lost power and they lost their elevator, because it goes up to the 4th floor. So these are things that I think we need to support as a community, and they're wonderful things to do. So you can go to either T. I'm sure they'll be great, both of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Heislip.
Had a couple comments or questions. You probably, yeah, I see you probably know what I'm going to ask you. No. Tennis courts, are we still keeping that vision of resurfacing at the forefront and getting, I know the funding for the courtyard here we kind of got angled into doing that, but I mean, is there any funding out there at all for I know I asked that a few times last year and the year before, but that's getting pretty bad up there. I mean, I play on those courts and I see the issues, and now pickleball's gained a bunch of things. There's 20 people playing there in the evenings, right? So that keeps that park kind of busy there too, so there's not people hanging around there when you got 20 people playing from 7 o'clock to 9:30, and you got people playing in the morning from 8 till 11. So it keeps that park busy, so there's not people. I mean, all these little things keep people from loitering and using it for other purposes, right? So, and it's a big draw now for tourism too as well. So that might be something that regionally we can look at, because there's regional tourism directive and there's our own tourism as well. So I was just wondering if we could get something in line for funding for maybe a couple of dedicated courts there and get that resurfaced or something, or if there's any kind of funding out there, or if there's something that another group can help with. I mean, the dog park was all done through a separate group, right? So we can also help with that, and I'm sure we can put a committee together.
If you'd like me to respond. Yeah, so I saw Councillor Heislip and Chris Hare is the kind of main contact that I've had with pickleball down there, and we've discussed this on a couple of occasions. We did use the gas tax money for the Plaza project this year at St. George. They used it theirs for pickleball, and it's something which, we would like to do. Of course, they are not going to be cheap. I can research the costs. I mean, one discussion I had with Chris just this morning was an option could be to add pickleball lines like we did on the one court to the second court, just to help. Of course, we're not trying to frustrate the tennis players out there, but that could be a short-term solution until funding can be found, and it probably would be in best guess to extend either the site at Milltown and push the fence back and prepare the ground and recover the court and put, it would be, my best guess would be over 100,000. So it's not going to be cheap. If there is, just as we've seen with the dog park, if there's, a group that, they can fundraise, whether it's through a Chase the Ace competition like we've seen, it's not to say it can't be done. It's just, I know that they want to be playing as often as they can tonight, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So
I even think your 100,000 is low, but yeah. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll talk about something pretty mundane, the airport. Do we still have somebody that looks after the airport?
Yes, that will be Mike Smith, who he coordinates with Jeremy, and Jeremy has, as you've seen his report, he has mowing crews going out there, and we're in good contact with Mike, and so yeah, long answer to a short question.
Thank you.
Councillor Rodas.
I just wanted to know, I went out paddleboarding with my son the other day. I was very nervous to fall in, but it was a blast. The only thing I will add is it was a bit tricky getting in the water, like from the actual landing. So I'm wondering if we could consider any type, I don't know if other communities have almost like a secondary landing off the floating landing that is, I don't know. If you can do some research on that, on just ways to get the paddleboard in and out of the water, because that was the only hard part when you pull back up to the wharf. You've got to like hoist yourself up, and I just think probably wouldn't be great if somebody did fall in. But all in all, it was a blast, and I would recommend for anyone, especially if the tide is high and the water's calm and it's 30 degrees out, it's a great opportunity, and it's $10. My other question is the Plaza project. I know originally there had been talk about that kind of like mural wall in between the library. I noticed it wasn't taken out, so I'm assuming it might be staying. Is that correct?
Yeah, the initial plan was it for it to be removed. The budget was not going to be able to cover that. So with we felt that obviously the paving was a safety issue. And got that done. It could be removed in future years if we, again, apply for funding and we can get it. So it's, I know there's people that like it, there's people that don't like it, and we had some comments as well through Pride Month that it was positive as well. So yeah, and just going back to the paddle boards, it's a little bit further to walk, but there's also the boat launch, and we've looked at. We had some funding through the VIC, the province for the VIC, and maybe relocating the VIC to Chocolate Park, so you've got that access. But and I'll see if there is something in which we can add to the dock if the boat launch is too far to stretch.
Okay. I just want to say, if I was having trouble getting on the paddleboard, that'd be a sign for me to stay off it. But anyway, go ahead, Councilor Rodas.
Yeah, and then the other thing I noticed is for your belongings, like if you got keys or a wallet or whatever, even just like a little outdoor locker box or something that you could have for people to use. And I've been doing a lot of my own work on truth and reconciliation stuff, and I wondered if it would be possible also to look into a mural or some sort of Indigenous art representation downtown. I think it would be really great even to reach out to Chief Akaji and see if the Pascuda Makati peoples would be interested in or have a recommendation of an Indigenous artist who could provide us with maybe even a historical representation of the Scudic, as they would call it, river downtown. Just because I noticed we have a lot of art that represents the history of St. Stephen, but not prior to St. Stephen, so being founded. So I think that would be something really cool to look into, and there's always Indigenous funding. It's pretty easy to find out there, so maybe if you could collaborate with even Heather Donahue at the BIA and see if that could be a possibility, that would be really cool.
Okay, thank you. Good night. Okay. So you covered all your titles there, Kev. Thank you. Next up. Okay. Treasurer's report. Tim, please. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As usual, my report's divided up into 3 sections. First section, staff activity since the last report. I really don't have much to add on that. You can see there's a number of projects that we have going on right now. One of the big ones we've just started just recently is preparation for the 2024 budget. Spreadsheets have been sent out to the department heads, and we're doing schedules and that sort of thing. So that's in the works right now. As far as the statements of revenue and expenditure for the general operating fund to the end of May, currently that'd be 41% of the year, has a surplus showing of a little bit over $887,000. In the utility operating fund right now, it's showing a deficit at the end of May of $357,000. And those that live in town that get water bills will realize that the water bills or the utility bills just went up recently. So that revenue will be reflected in the June statements, and currently right now the June statements for the water and sewer have switched over, and it's showing a surplus at the end of June. And finally, the check register listing for the month of June, showing checks paid of a little bit over $1 million. And that's it for me, if anybody has any questions.
Councilor Greenlaw?
Yeah, there's a couple there. Just on the water and sewer bills, we've still got quite a set of arrears. Was it almost $1 million that were uncollected? Are we doing anything with regards to moving forward and trying to collect that?
We have a procedure right now that we follow. It's a policy as far as collecting on it. It's a system of 2 letters that get sent out. It's kind of a long and tedious process, and we're looking at changing that to speed things up so things can go a lot faster for sure on it, because it is difficult. Because of course, when you don't get your water bills, we wind up having large overdraft in utility. The town's paying a lot of interest on it, And plus, right now, it's difficult as well in the utility because we're also paying the expenditures for the fire expenditures down at the wastewater treatment plant until we get the money in from the insurance company as well. So we have to monitor that very closely. So it is a big issue, and it's certainly one of our priorities looking at. And I think probably at some point we'll have to bring something to council as far as maybe a change in the collection policy as far as trying to get things moving so we can get things done a lot faster.
Yes, Councilor Greenlaw?
On the report, I'm assuming this is just a flow-through with regards to Chamber of Commerce Group Insurance Plan. That's just a flow-through as far as money, because it says direct bank withdrawals. Chamber of Commerce Group Insurance Plan for June, $17,000. I'm assuming that's flow-through.
That will be the money that we pay to the Chamber of Commerce for the health plan for the town employees. And some of it might be, some of the money that is money that we've collected from the employees that's offset against it, and some of the employees have 100% of it paid. So it's a combination of employee contributions and town contributions that we pay every month for it.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councilor Harding. Sorry, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. When this new procedure, Tim, about the collection of water bills, could there be a fine attached to that? Because after all, if you don't pay your bills, especially your water bill, it's theft of something, it's theft of water. And could there not be some sort of monetary section of that, do you think?
I've never really considered that or thought about it. I mean, one of the big ways that we do to collect water is by turning the water off with it. So, and also if they don't pay, the town has a lien on the property as well if they try to sell the property and they don't pay their water bill on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. And I mean, we talked about that in our committee of the whole meeting about adjusting that, because when people, and we all can get behind and you can't catch up. So you got to kind of tackle that early. So we are in the process of that. Okay, any more comments for questions for Tim? Now we'll move on to Future St. Stephen Economic Development Report from Ian.
Thank you, Worship. Just making sure my mic works to the light. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this last month I've been quite busy with ongoing discussions with multiple developers regarding multiple sites within St. Stephen. I'm highlighting two specific developers, two different opportunities that I've met with at various stages. I've already also met with the RSC to help with those discussions up front, to allow them to understand what they're allowed to do, avoid any barriers down the line. So again, thank you to Alex and his team for doing that with myself. I also met with another interested developer and took him on a site tour of St. Stephen itself with multiple properties, multiple opportunities for development. And that is, again, ongoing in the background. Kev and I, in collaboration with the municipality, we met at the Board Arena with another developer that was interested to see, again, is there an opportunity at the Board Arena for development? And that is also ongoing. So there's multiple opportunities with different developers that we're in discussions with. I also wanted to highlight that there was two separate businesses interested in relocating or in discussion at looking, expanding into the industrial park, especially with the ability to use rail as an opportunity. So that's something I've been discussing with these businesses. It's ongoing. As Jeff mentioned, at the time of my report, I was just mentioning that we're still in discussions regarding the Housing Accelerator Fund that will be submitted for application, and we've worked with the municipality and the RSC on that project as well to identify different locations, different barriers to get housing going as that funding is specifically used for. There has been ongoing conversations with a range of developers regarding the need and possibility of opportunities of the hotel project, not just at the waterfront, but at other locations. So that is going on again in the background, and conversations are continuing. And then I also do continue and network with businesses. So I've met, even in the last week, with 2 new businesses that want to move to town, whether they're independent or just looking at St. Stephen as an opportunity to relocate or expand. So I'm having ongoing discussions as a point of contact. And typically I would also link them to whether the BIA or the Chamber. I also will keep the municipality in the loop as far as new business for opportunity. And I think the last thing I'd highlight, we do continue to see newcomers moving, and newcomers being whether from overseas or within Canada moving to St. Stephen to relocate. And the Welcome St. Stephen program, again, we continue to see more and more families. So over this last month, we've paired 12 families with local families or community members that are interested to work with newcomers, just to invite them into the town, let them know what facilities we have, help them out, understand what their interests are, with the goal of welcoming them, but trying to keep them and retain them into our community, and let them know that they are an important part of the growth of St. Stephen. So I'd like to thank, I have 4 volunteers that work diligently in behind the background. They deliver the welcome packet. They're in communication with these families. So they're doing a lot of work in the background that I wouldn't possibly be able to do day to day. So, and that completes my report.
Thank you, Ian. Any questions of council?
Yes.
Oh, hello, Earl. Councilor Eastman, floor is yours.
I'm still here. To Ian, did you ever do any research on the border arena, on the aspect of maybe considering that you put an all year around market in there?
You said a market?
Yes.
I haven't specifically done research to that. I do know that in the past it's been looked at for various uses. So I'd let the municipality speak on, I don't know if there's liability or where the facility's at currently for those options, but I know that we've looked at many different opportunities, even since I've stepped in this chair, as far as usage for the building. But I don't know if, Jeff, you want to comment further, or anyone else?
I would suggest maybe just to take your research people and look at the 400 flea market just inside of Barrie, Ontario. I've had a lot of exposure to that during my military career, and it's still successful today. So it's been running now for almost 30 years. They've taken exactly what we got. They've taken an old arena, and they've developed it so that they've got an ongoing freaking market, like once a week. But the vendors actually pay to have a spot there, and they make it a permanent spot as long as you pay your monthly dues. But yeah, they've had like 30 years of success. It's something incredible there. And demographically around our area, nobody's doing that. You know, you got the food markets in Fredericton, and you got the marketplace in St. John. But just a place, a market in our area, your demographics would pull from Harvey, all the way up to Musquash. So, it's something worthwhile to entertain and to take a look at.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the ideas, and we would definitely take into consideration, and I'll discuss that further as we look at opportunities. Thanks, Earl.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can communicate too. If he's got any history or... Okay. All right. Next, okay, we got, so now we've done the departmental reports. Any questions on the departmental reports as a whole? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the departmental reports? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now the fun stuff. Okay, now we're moving into bylaws. Can I have a mover and seconder for bylaw 11-23, second reading? Councillor Heislip? Second. Councillor Harding? Bylaw number 11-23 being a bylaw to repeal bylaw L-5, the former town of St. Stephen, be given its second reading. This is bylaw to repeal the code respecting standards for the maintenance and occupancy of residential buildings and premises in the town of St. Stephen. Be enacted by the Council of the Municipal District of St. Stephen as follows. Bylaw number L-5, bylaw to adopt a code respecting standards for maintenance and occupancy of residential buildings and premises in the town of St. Stephen is hereby repealed in its entirety. This bylaw comes into force on the date of the third and final reading thereof. Any questions, council? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Earl, or Councillor Eastman. Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you. There's your second reading. Mover and seconder for 11-23, third and final reading. Deputy Mayor Wheaton. Councillor Rodas. I won't read that again. It's the same bylaw. So bylaw 11-23 being a bylaw to repeal the bylaw L-5, the former town of St. Stephen, be given its third and final reading. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right. Okay. Mover section for bylaw 12-23 for the second reading.
I move.
Thank you, Councillor Eastman. Second. Councillor Cornish. Bylaw 12-23 being in the bylaw for dangerous and unsightly properties be given its second reading. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Earl. None opposed. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Mover and seconder for bylaw 12-23, third and final reading. Councillor Harding. Second. Deputy Mayor Wheaton. Bylaw 12-23 being the bylaw for dangerous and unsightly properties be given its third and final reading. Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 13-23. Ooh, just read that whole. Yeah, okay, mover and seconder for bylaw 13-23, second reading. Mover and seconder, please. So moved. Deputy Mayor Wheaton. Councilor Cornish. That the bylaw 13-23 be given, being the subdivision bylaw, be given the second reading. Are we going to make that change or wait to the third? You go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Yeah, Your Worship. I would recommend that we do read this one as amended per the PRAC identified mistake, and then third and final reading would just be a regular reading of to finish.
All right. So do you have the amended version, or we've already?
You have the letter from PRAC. You have the letter from PRAC in your package, identifying the misstatement of the numbers. So we would just apply the changes, as that would be the amendment in second reading, and then at third reading, it would already be there.
Here, sorry. I thought it was going to be on the third reading. Okay, so let's do it on the second. So can I still use the same mover and seconder? Yes?
So long as they find the amendment to be friendly.
Okay. Does everyone find that friendly?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's just second on Earl up there. Okay. So bylaw 13-23, second reading, proposed resolution, being the subdivision bylaw, be given its second reading with the amendment attached. All those any questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Bylaw carried. Thank you. And here we are on the third. So, mover and seconder for bylaw 13-23, third and final reading. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Harding? Second. Councillor Cornish? That the bylaw 13-23, being the subdivision bylaw, be given its third and final reading as we changed in the second reading. Any questions? Councillor Greenlaw?
Just on 3.4, reserve strips abutting a street in the subdivision are prohibited except where such strips are vested in the municipality. Can you just clarify that a little bit?
So what that is when developers are doing a subdivision and there is a reserve strip, what that means is it's they would have a little strip of land, maybe a meter wide, that would prevent someone from accessing a road or otherwise, and they don't want, basically the idea with this is a very common provision to have in a subdivision bylaw. You don't want these to be vested in the developer to prevent someone from having access to, say, a part of the road that would otherwise abut their property, but they have this reserve strip in the way that they got to pay the developer later down the road to get through that area. It's just, you don't see it very often anymore, but it was maybe not the best practice developers had to prevent access for a second driveway. Let's say if you're on a corner lot, they would have a reserve strip that they'd keep that you'd have to pay them later to get access through. Nowadays, if you're going to do a reserve strip, you vest it in the municipality, and that way, if you want to keep driveways on, say, the subdivision road as opposed to spilling out onto the main street and having too many driveways on the main street, then vest those into the municipality as land for public purpose, the thing we were talking about.
Good clarification. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, new business, request for decisions. I need a mover and seconder for the Ivan Cook subdivision proposed resolution. Councillor Heislip? Seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Wheaton? Discussion on that? Or is anyone good? All right, so no questions? All right, so the proposed resolution that council approved the private lane name, Apple Tree Lane. And seeing no questions, all in favor? Aye. I think he said aye. Any opposed? Name given the go. Okay. All right. So next up, we got correspondence. I need a mover and seconder to a motion to receive the letter and petition to enforce the dangerous and unsightly premises policies at 64 Mark Street. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive, please? Councillor Wright and Deputy Mayor Wheaton. And I think before we ask for questions on this, I would ask that Sean maybe give us a little clarification on our role through the bylaw system and how that process rolls out, just before questions start flying, if any questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. As with any particular file, I can't get into specifics. However, I would like the public to understand that the dangerous and unsightly premises bylaw is a bylaw that the municipality passes to adopt a provincial act. So we're not creating these rules, we are adopting provincial regulations. So we are bound by what that act says, and is very prescriptive, there's a very set out process that goes along with that. It's a little bit misleading, I've said this before, in that the unsightly part of that title makes people think that I don't like the looks of it, so it's unsightly. That's not the way it works. There are very strict guidelines. So there are several properties within the town that we have files open on. We have concerns with other properties that may, at some point, get to that point. Some of them are in not a typical situation, I guess I'll say that. But at some point, they may be subject to this bylaw, but at this time, they may or may not be. I have taken calls, I have taken emails suggesting that my department is not doing their job or not doing it properly. I will say that because I can't get into specifics, you may or may not know that we are doing our job. And if I was, I can't necessarily tell you that we are. But I think there's an assumption that we're just not doing anything. And I want the public to know that we are monitoring many properties in town, and if it is warranted, we are taking the appropriate action as prescribed by the provincial act. If a property is subject to that act, there is a very strict process by which we have to follow. That process, at best, could be 3 to 4 months. If there is any type of cooperation on the part of the property owner, that can drag on for years. They can comply one day, the file gets closed, and then it can fall right back into the same state, and we have to start all over again. So I guess that's what I would say about that in general terms.
Can you kind of state the process in general, how that would work? How you approach the situation if it is unsightly?
Sure. So first, it would start by either our staff identifying a problem or receiving a complaint. At that point, we have to notify the landowner that we are going to go on to their property and make an inspection. We can either contact them directly, or if we're unable to contact them directly, we send out registered letters. We have to wait 2 weeks. If we get a response prior to 2 weeks, then we can act at that point. If we get no response at 2 weeks, we can go on and do the inspections. If we find cause for concern or issues with the property, then we have to fill out proper paperwork, get it sent out, wait a certain amount of time. I'm not going to quote the exact amount of time, but it's weeks or maybe even a month. Wait. If we get a response, they can choose to take the actions that we've requested, and if they do so, then that's the end of the process. If they do not, we can send out another letter. We have to send 3 letters without action. At that point, if we do not get any action and the property is still in non-compliance, then it comes to council for approval to take whatever action we require to put it into compliance. So you can see all along the way, there are things that can either speed up the process or slow down the process. Typically, this is, a 4 or 5 month process at best, typically.
Thank you, Sean. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but just want a clarification. And any questions, Council? Council Rodas.
Okay, I got a few questions. I'll just list them and then you can answer. If a letter comes in from the public, such as this one that just says Mark Street residents, my question would be, is this a situation similar when you call the RCMP, it's like this would be the complainant, like this is the person that's making the complaint against Starshine Properties or whoever in this letter, that's who it's to. And is it, if it's issued to Manzer, for instance, does he have to have somebody to communicate back to? Like, does it make it more challenging for you when you receive a letter from general residents because you don't actually know the one specific person? And then my second thing I'll add is when you say something's not in compliance and then it would come to council to put it into compliance, my question would be, for instance, if there's vigilante behavior and people are boarding something up, does that actually make it more challenging for us to do something if they've kind of taken matters into their own hands, or does it make it, I want to clarify this so that if there are, vacant properties, that people know the outcomes of their actions, and we also know what the outcomes are of the actions as well.
I'm going to interrupt here. We don't know if someone boarded it up or not. Factually, we don't know. It's just boarded up when we arrive, right? So we got to be careful about what we say. It's only what we know, facts. But if you got more comments to make on that questions there, Sean, the floor is yours.
I'll answer the question with respect to if someone makes a complaint, would somebody reporting back to them? The answer is no. You make the complaint, but you're not privy to any information with what is going on, whether it is compliant, non-compliant, what we're doing. You will not get a response. So if the people of Mark Street Group are expecting a response, they will not get a response.
Would we have a response saying we are looking into it?
Really, I can't even say that I'm looking at a specific property. I can't.
Okay, sorry. Okay. All right, Councillor Heislip.
Yeah, I know in the past with these unsightly premises that even council has to be cautious about what they know about the files because it could be brought to court, and we're voting. We're going to be bringing down a vote on it, motion to whatever for the unsightly premises. So if we know too much about it, it could put us in a little bit of a conflict or a perceivable building a case around itself. Exactly, there's probably better wording in. So that's just been in the past, and I've talked to Mr. Young and about other files. He says, no, I can't even take your complaint on it. If it ends up on a note on my desk or something there from somebody else, then he can. It doesn't have to be a name attached to it or anything. So, thanks.
I'm going to go Deputy Mayor Wheaton. She hasn't said much. Let's just I'll get you next.
No, but the letter's not even addressed to us. It's just a copy. So you don't really reply to letters that aren't addressed to you, right?
No, that's a point taken. Councillor Greenlaw?
So I know we just rescinded one bylaw and we adopted the provincial statute in another bylaw on the unsightly premises, but I'm wondering, is there anything we can do as far as creating our own governance to try to prevent these properties from getting to the point where we have to use that particular piece of legislation?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's something that we've been actively looking at, going back to the Town of St. Stephen Council, the past council, is working towards the creation of a minimum property standards bylaw, which would, in theory, deal with the unsightly component of that people think the unsightly belongs to. We had a draft. We had it for legal review. There was a bunch of concerns from legal. And then, of course, amalgamation hit, and it kind of got backburnered, to be perfectly honest. We can bring that back up for further discussion and more work with our legal team on that, because it was something that Mr. Morton and I had talked to the old committee of the whole about. We were working towards it. We actually had it was a 60-page document written. And then legal, lawyers are who they are, but so we have to go back and kind of go through those comments from the legal again, and maybe get them to come down and work with us through it. But there is a tool potentially out there, as long as we do it the right way. But it will take work.
Work and enforcement. Yep. Councillor Rodas.
I think my biggest concern is that not only is it unsightly and dangerous and all of those things, but my biggest concern would be similar to Airbnbs. When you're in a housing crisis and there are Airbnbs that are sitting vacant available for use by maybe tourists that are coming to the area, it's taking housing away from your residents. So I was wondering if there may be a bylaw out there that we could research where we put a restriction on properties sitting vacant for months on end and back it with the fact that we are in an emergency housing state. We have probably the highest number of unsheltered people per capita for the size of our town in the province. I'm throwing that out there. I'm not 100% on that, but it feels like it. Well, I'm saying this is the reality. Like, I want to be clear. This is the reality. This letter was sent to us, and they asked to have it brought to council, read at the next council session, which we didn't do, and CC'd to Ward 2 councillors, and I represent Ward 2. So it's important that we talk about things in the open. I mean, we drive by every day. We don't know officially what's going on, but we kind of know what's going on. And I think we just need to be aware of the fact that if there are multiple units in our town that end up being vacant for long periods of time, then it is perpetuating the housing crisis that we're in, and I think that's unacceptable.
Right. So on that, I just want to extend this some. We all have heard the rumors, and that's all they are to us right now is rumors. And they do raise alarms. 100% we're nervous about what we've heard because it sounds like a big number. But until we as a town do not know of the situation because we don't know if it's real or not. It's just right now we're just hearing it, getting emails. So, and I don't even think we have the tool to even do anything about that at this point. But yes, it's serious. And yes, it's a lot of units, but I don't know more I can say without getting ourselves in trouble here. But anyways, is any more comments on that, Jeff?
Through your worship, just to Councillor Royce's comments about vacant properties. One, in my time in this business, one of the most effective tools that I've come across over the years was in Alberta, where the municipalities were empowered with taxation powers that allowed us to charge a higher tax rate on vacant properties to deal with that housing crisis type situation. Unfortunately, the government of New Brunswick has not extended those kinds of taxation powers to us or anywhere near the amount of powers that other jurisdictions have. There have been promises in the amalgamation paperwork that new financial reform will be coming. I would suggest that it would be wise for this council potentially to consider putting something to paper suggesting that as they're developing these new financial tools, that tools like that, and we can reference other jurisdictions that have them, be considered as something that they can implement for municipalities in this province, because when you're given those kinds of tools, you can do a lot more from a policy perspective. Right now, we get to set one residential tax rate for the whole municipality. That's it. And then even from that, then the government creates the non-residential, and the government creates the commercial. So, whereas in Alberta, we were doing that when we did our municipal budgeting. We had 12 different tax rates that we used for farmland, for vacant land, for industry. We had the power to make, my council at the time had the power to make policy decisions that were best for their community. This province has not seen fit to bestow the municipalities with that kind of power, but I think that would be a great tool, and I think that it should be brought forward, whether it's through UMNB, through our MLA, both, to the new minister. Like, these are things that are going to be coming quickly as they try to wrap up amalgamation paperwork, and we should be pushing for those tools because it's actually what's going to get you to the next step of being able to address some of these concerns in a real way. Developers, you want to get to developers, it's not whining and complaining, it's hitting them in the pocketbook. And we know that. And taxation is a very powerful way to do that.
Thank you, and I'm glad you brought the UMNB because I was thinking of it as we were discussing it. Like you can bring that to your table, to your meeting you're having coming right up, actually.
Yeah.
Because that collective voice has got more power. more power as well.
This has been talked about, the issues throughout the province, even to the point where prime pieces of land are being bought by developers, and they're just sitting on them to flip them a couple years later. So that is high on the priority list for UMNB. This month, they're meeting, there's a board meeting this month, and the new minister of ELG is going to be there. And then this is all in the works. I'll make sure that that's brought forward.
Thank you, Wade. Yes, just 1 second. So yes, this was presented. I just want to clarify, and we didn't have to read it. We had to discuss it, and it's there and available for everyone to read because it's in the package. It's a public document, so it is there for everyone to read. But we don't need to read it, but we need to discuss it, which we did. So was it Councillor Heislip?
Good idea about the minimum property standards, but also when myself and Councillor Harding were kind of in discussion with you just indirectly on the emails is the out-of-province landlords. It seems to be, we never had that issue before, but now we seem to, it's reared its ugly head, and now we might be into as rumor says, we might be into a situation here that's there's a lot of vacant, and that's because of that. I don't know I don't know if Alex, have you had any experience in that, but I know other people have been struggling with it too. It's, like these companies that you don't even know who the person is. They could be representing somebody from a different country or, across the world. And I don't know how you'd ever stipulate that or how would it ever go, because you can't stop somebody selling their house. Doesn't matter who it's to, I don't think. So I don't know if we can do any research on that or have that as some way of deterring some of these properties from what we're seeing now today. So.
Is there anything you can add to that, Alex?
Through your worship, for clarity, there was a question about foreign property owners, absentee owners buying up properties and then having situations. Okay, yeah, I don't know of the tax system that was applied in British Columbia, but there was a tax that was levied. And I don't know if it's gone through court system, if it's been challenged or not, and if it's been affected. I think the CEO might have more knowledge on this than I do. But I would concur with the CEO's comments around taxation on land. We have a system where we penalize people for developing, and we incentivize people to sit on land and not do anything, or to let buildings fall derelict. So our system really needs to. I've seen I've heard about the city of St. John, and I think even the rural community of Campobello writing to the Minister of Service in Brunswick regarding the issues around vacant lands being getting a free ride essentially in the tax system. So,
thank you, Jeff.
Sure, Your Worship. Just. Councillor Heislip and Harding did bring this up to me a little while ago. I've started to do some research. It is a murky area of law when you get into that kind of control over people and what the people can do with their own property and things like that. There are, again, different tools that can be applied to place pressure in the right spots on corporations, on people, on developers and things from they're out of province that other communities have used, and I've been putting together a bit of a dossier on things that other people have been trying. But it is, and I think I warned the councillors when they first brought it up to me that it was going to be a murky area of law and it might take me a while to crack the code. But it is actively under review, and I'm doing the best I can to wrap my head around what's doable in our legal context.
Okay, it seems like a lot of municipalities are dealing with this right now. If it's a hot topic at UMNB, so hopefully all of us together can resolve. Oh, sorry, Councillor Otis.
I'm just going to say it because this is how I feel. I'm incredibly frustrated with the province and how much is falling on municipalities, and this is affecting our community and affecting our municipality, and these are provincially mandated issues that are not being taken care of. There are people that are writing us 3, 4, 5-page letters and ultimately, we have no control over this. So I would like to request that we make a motion to sit down with Kathy Baucus, even in a closed session, and talk about how provincially mandated issues that are not being handled are affecting our municipality. I think we need to have a closed session with her and sit with her and kind of talk about some of these things, because it is feeling like municipalities are overwhelmed by these issues, but we are the ones that are directly impacted by it. The individuals on Mark Street are the ones that are impacted by these long processes and our inability to even do a tax rate or anything like that. It just feels like we're totally stuck. And I know we've had some correspondence with her, but I would really like to publicly say that I think we need to sit down with her in a closed session and talk about how this is affecting our municipality. And I would request that people also, if you're sending us these letters, send it to her as well, right? Write her one, show up at her doorstep, and also communicate with her, because it's sad when community members are directing this much passion and energy, but it's landing on the wrong doorstep. And not that we don't want to deal with it, we do, but we need to find a way to sit down and talk about it.
Thanks, Councillor Otis. Not completely the wrong doorstep. Again, I know these aren't our challenges, but again, I think a meeting with Minister Baucus is relevant, but the UMNB part of it is a much better avenue to take, because it's a collective voice of the whole province. So it gives us it takes more merit, and they listen and support you. Okay. Yeah.
Could I pose a question to the CAO?
Yes, go ahead, Earl. Or Councillor Eastman, sorry.
Yeah, Jeff, we're just not looking at residential stuff when we're looking at the, maybe a way to tax these people back into using their property. We're looking at corporations too, right?
Through your worship. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, my thing is that, that Sobeys building's been sitting there for what, 5, 6, 7 years? And vacant.
Yes, it's been an active topic of conversation between Mr. Williams and myself for quite a while about how to incentivize, or whether it's the carrot or the stick. How do we get movement going, especially in relation to that particular property?
Yeah, roger that.
Okay. All right, any more comments or questions from council?
I would just make one comment.
Councillor Wright?
I would just make one comment. It was a few months back that I read an article from the Real Estate Association, to stress that we're not alone in this, about the number of residential properties that were being bought by corporate entities in New Brunswick, and actually Canada-wide. So we're not alone in that, and the number was quite staggering for what has happened in the year 2022 in that department. I'm not passing judgment on whether it's right or wrong, because again, the laws allow people to buy and sell property, and if somebody wants to sell their home, they can sell it to whom they wish as long as that's legal. So I'm not passing judgment when I say that. I'm just saying that it is a rather unique phenomenon that surpasses our borders, that's for sure.
Okay. It's a rough topic.
It is.
And I'm not saying we're not nervous, that's for sure. And we are asking the questions, and just like Sean was saying, there is action being done to the best that we can do, but it's a slow process, and just know that there is action. Hey, and we live in those areas as well. And I fear it's growing, as we're seeing. Anyway. Okay, so I had a mover and seconder to go in. No more further questions. Can I have a vote to all those in favor of accepting in this letter of petition? Aye. Councillor Harding, Councillor Greenlaw. Oh, wait, what am I doing? Aye, any opposed? Jeez. Motion carried to accept the letter. Thank you. All right, next up, mover and seconder to accept the council reports as acknowledged and received. Councillor Harding, Councillor Wright. Any questions on the council reports? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Report's accepted. Thank you. All right, I need a mover and seconder to move into closed. Councilor Rodas, Councilor Cornish, that the pursuant to Section 68, Bracket 1, that the Local Governments Act, Council move to a closed session for the proposed discussing a labor employment matter and a labor employment matter. Any questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much.